Hey everyone, this is Barcha Bolsi with WHRB 95.3 FM, and welcome to Deep Dive, my new podcast series. In Deep Dive, my goal is to break down interesting contemporary topics for everyone, and occasionally there will be guests to help me do that. I'm really excited for this. Making a podcast has been something I wanted to do since the summer, and it's finally happening. This technically isn't the first recorded episode. I recorded and edited an episode about nationalism around 2 weeks ago, but I've decided to release this one prior to the nationalism one, so be on the lookout for that other one soon. This week's episode is about midterms, and oh god, there is a lot to break down here. I was at a watch party last night, and needless to say, it was both exciting and very, very, very nerve-wracking. First off, the Democrats have officially gained a majority in the House of Representatives. What this means is that Democrats have a real seat at the table now when it comes to the legislative process. Trump and the Republicans will have to cross the aisle and work with Democrats if they want to get any sort of legislation through Congress. How Trump navigates this and how Democrats choose to receive these actions in the event he and the Republicans do cross the aisle will heavily shape the potency and effectiveness of the rest of Trump's term in office. Secondly, Republicans maintained their majority in the Senate and gained 3 seats, while Democrats gained 1. Interestingly enough, there will be a runoff for the Mississippi Senate late this month, so we'll see who wins out there. In governor's races, Democrats won 7 governorships, which is significant for several reasons. Traditionally, Republicans hold majority of governorships, and with the 2020 census coming up, these positions are not just important on the state level, but on the national level too. Why, you may ask? Well, the Electoral College is the short answer. The 2020 census is going to give states the opportunity to redraw all of their electoral maps and reconfigure how many seats they have in the House. Gerrymander, fight in the courts over the ridiculous-looking districts that are clearly unconstitutional, etc. You know, just the usual politicking. Governors have a stake in redrawing districts. They can sign certain maps into existence and veto others. This is also a reason why I wish local races for state legislatures got as much hype as the national ones, because they're important too, especially when you have a census coming up. It's these people who are determining what electoral maps look like. And if anyone's been suffering from the Electoral College, it's the Democrats. They're usually more likely to win the popular vote than the Electoral College, so a couple of Democratic legislators and governorships couldn't hurt them. There were some major upsets for Democrats, and alternatively, major victories for Republicans, mind you, namely in Florida and Texas. Gillum and O'Rourke were so incredibly close there. It was crazy to watch. A race that close isn't unusual in Florida, a state that's known for being really bipolar. But for Texas, I was surprised. Texas is one of those states where you just know it's red. The name itself sounds red, but O'Rourke was so incredibly close. The whole night, I was wondering how popular he was versus how much Ted Cruz is just hated. Someone should check that out, honestly. And of course, Democrats with no clear favorite to carry the torch in 2020 see O'Rourke and immediately see someone they'd love to run for president after what he did in Texas. Now I want to take the focus back to my home, Georgia. Oh, Georgia, I love you. I really do. But you're just a mess sometimes. I want to highlight 2 races in Georgia. Obviously, the governor's race, where Stacey Abrams sought to become the first African-American woman governor, and the House race in my home district, District 6. So, for the Georgia governor's race, you have Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams. Kemp is a Trump Republican, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. He's also the current Secretary of State, aka he's overseeing the election he's running in. Seems sketchy? Yeah, it is. Did he step down? Absolutely not. Abrams is a Democrat, a more moderate one at that, which is essential when you're running in a state like Georgia. If there's one way I can describe this race, it's messy. Let me list some things that had happened around this election. Kemp's office purged 700,000 voters off the rolls. A court had to rule Kemp's office to stop rejecting absentee ballots over subjective signature discrepancies. Certain polling locations didn't have functional machines, some didn't have power cords for the machines, some had lines anywhere between 2 to 4 hours long. Oh, and Kemp's office launched an investigation with no evidence against the Democratic Party of Georgia for quote-unquote cyber crimes 2 days before the election. Did that exhaust you? It sure exhausted me. Long story short, it was a mess, and it might not even be over. Kemp currently has 50.3% of the vote. Abrams has 48.7. However, Abrams refuses to concede. Basically, she's banking on provisional votes and absentee ballots, breaking Kemp's majority and triggering a runoff. We'll see if that happens, and if it does, oh boy. That'll be interesting. If it does go to a runoff and Abrams wants to win, she has to emphasize being moderate, at least in my opinion. Why? Because in the end, her base will vote for her, and Kemp's base will vote for him. The deciding factor will be those moderates, usually right-leaning and classic conservatives, who are turned off by Trump-like candidates, but don't feel secure enough in their personal interest to vote for a Democrat. And what I mean by that is, liberals are more likely to vote not just in their own interests, but in the interests of others. You can see that just by looking at liberal issues and positions. Conservatives, however, are more likely to vote in their own personal interests. This is also reflected in their issues and positions. So, for Abrams to get those moderate and classic conservative swing voters, she would have to make them feel more secure in their interests. How does she do that? Well, she'll have to play up her own centricism. Something like, spontaneously going to a gun range and shooting guns with people. If she plays up her centrism, in the event of a runoff, that's what'll make it more likely that she wins, in my opinion. Because if Kemp gets those swing votes, it's over. In my own home district, District 6, Lucy McBath and incumbent Karen Handel battled it out. If the name District 6 sounds familiar, then you probably heard about the special election there around a year ago where Karen Handel and Jon Ossoff faced each other in the most expensive and one of the most highly publicized House races in history. It was a tough race, and Ossoff lost, but he almost got half the vote. Keep in mind, this district was held by Republican Tom Price for 12 years prior to this special election, and it's actually Newt Gingrich's district. So what I'm trying to say is the district is historically very conservative. I mean, I grew up there, so I know. Recently, though, it's been getting more and more liberal. It also isn't Trump conservative, it's more classically conservative, and this means something. Why? Well, plain and simple, Trump turns off classic conservatives, or just people who are right-leaning moderates. It's precisely those people, not just the growing liberal population, that's contributing to more and more split results when it comes to elections with people who have Trump's values. Check it out. In 2012, Obama got 38% in the district. Romney got 61% of the vote. In 2016, though, Hillary Clinton got 47% of the vote and Trump got 48% of the vote. He barely won. But I digress. Basically, the waters are muddy. And even though Jon Ossoff can't win, that election spoke volumes about the changing politics of District 6. And laid the groundwork for future Democrats like McBath to get that extra 2%, which she did. The current polls have her at 50.5% and Handel at 49.5% of the vote. But since Handel didn't concede, there'll be a recount. But if McBath wins, even once this recount is conducted, it'll speak volumes. All in all, though, this was a pretty impressive midterm election for the country as a whole. Turnout was up in the millions of percent. I think last time I heard about the turnout stats, it was up 8 million percent or something crazy like that. Us young people exercise the right to vote in astronomical numbers, the likes of which has never been seen before. And for that, I'm so proud. I always say I'm hopeful for my generation, and I think I have very good reason to be. And 2020 is right around the corner. It's going to come faster than you think. I'll be very, very interested to see what happens. Trump is probably going to get the Republican nomination. I'd be surprised if he didn't. I mean, the only way he wouldn't is if something absolutely wild happened. Kasich might run as an independent, at least that's what he made it sound like last week on ABC's The View. And it would be nice if the Democrats gathered themselves by then, regained a solid platform that wasn't, or at least didn't appear to be, vote for us because Trump is bad, and found someone formidable to go up against him and make it an interesting race. This midterm was one for a lot of firsts. The first Muslim congresswoman, the first Native American congresswoman, and the youngest congresswoman to ever be elected, among many, many other firsts. So, if there's one thing for sure, it's that change is here, and it's only gonna keep getting better. Well, folks, that's the end of this. kind of sort of first deep dive episode. Thank you so much for listening, and any and all feedback is much appreciated. If you have any topic requests, please comment them, and until next time, have a wonderful day. Thank you.